Hey guys, Droopy Harrell here with 9 Leadership, and today we're coming to you with another Cinema Coach video. Today we're talking about Cobra Kai, and I dressed up as Johnny Lawrence for Halloween, so I figured why not make use of the costume. Here I am. If you've not seen it yet, warning, there are spoilers ahead. So, stay tuned. We'll get into it shortly. So, for those of you who have not watched Cobra Kai and have been living under a rock for another, few years now, Cobra Kai came out a couple years ago as the kind of pseudo skip ahead sequel to the Karate Kid Part 1 and 2 and 3 apparently. It's the story of Johnny Lawrence after the crushing loss to Daniel LaRusso at the end of the first Karate Kid movie. Now, for those of you who have not seen Karate Kid, I did a Cinema Coach video about Karate Kid a few weeks ago, and that's up here, so check that out when you get a chance. But for those of you who want to know about Cobra Kai and want to jump into it, here's a summary of what you missed. Like I said, Cobra Kai picks up where Karate Kid Part 1 ended, with Daniel winning using the crane kick against Johnny Lawrence, and changes things a little bit because Johnny doesn't get up to congratulate Daniel. Instead, he stays on the ground and feels really defeated. Fast forward 40 years-ish, and here we are in 2020, or I think the movie is actually in 2018 or 19. Johnny Lawrence is currently doing odd jobs around the city to make money, to make ends meet, because he's not really well off right now. Meanwhile, Daniel LaRusso is doing extremely well. He owns a string of car dealerships and is doing extremely well for himself, has a beautiful family, but ultimately, the distinction between the two characters is completely reversed from where it was in the 1984 classic. This is a story of Johnny and how he takes on a pupil of his own, and how he restarts Cobra Kai after 35 years. Now, one of the cool things about Cobra Kai is, aside from the fact that they brought all the actors back, the ones who are still alive anyway, the storyline's actually pretty well done. And it's a really interesting difference from the original Karate Kid versus now. In this situation, the nerd in the story is actually Johnny's pupil, whereas in the original story, Daniel was a nerd. Not so much nerd, but the one who got picked on. Johnny was considered the bully in the original movie. And in this situation, Daniel's almost kind of like the bully, because he's the cool, popular one. He's doing really well for himself, where Johnny's kind of like the outcast. On the flip side, Miguel, who's Johnny's pupil, he ends up he's a nerd, he's an outcast at school, he's the one who's teased and picked on and beat up. And Johnny takes him under his wing, albeit a little bit reluctantly, as his student. Now, the part of this series, the whole series is actually really, really well done. Both seasons 1 and 2 are extremely well done, both from the writing perspective as well as the acting perspective. And the characters are just some of my favorites of all times. So I'm a little bit biased in that mindset. But the part that I want to focus on is one scene in particular where Johnny tells the story of the original Karate Kid from his point of view. Now, again, if you haven't watched the original Karate Kid, it's a must-see situation. You got to watch it. It'll be a little bit of a throwback for those of you who were alive during the 80s. It'll be culture shock for those of you who were not alive during the 80s or 90s. And it's still worth it to watch. It tackles a lot of really hard-hitting, close-to-home concepts, like bullying, like fitting in, like moving across the country and really trying to make the best of a situation that you're not really a fan of. That's what Daniel goes through in that movie. But hearing Johnny's perspective in this new series that came out a little while ago, and season 3 is coming soon, so that's something I'm pretty excited about, as you couldn't tell. Hearing that perspective is extremely powerful because of the fact that if you were Johnny, you could probably think of it the same way. You can completely see this person viewing his story this way, shaping this story in that way, and to him, that's his reality. His reality was that Daniel was the bad guy. Daniel was butting into his personal situation. That's massive, and that's a total shift from what we saw in the original, because we're almost encouraged to love Daniel, to really he really is like the guy we want to win the whole thing. You want him to beat Johnny, right? But then you hear it from Johnny's perspective, and I'm not going to say you switch sides. You're not going to say like, oh yeah, Daniel was the bad guy, but you can see how that would be reality to Johnny. You can see how Johnny might perceive things that way. And it makes you really think about things. Think about story and perception and reality, and how these things are so in flux. Well, the way I perceive the world is definitely not the way you perceive the world, and vice versa. And anyone else in your life, even if you're experiencing the exact same events, can have completely different experiences of those events and different stories around them. That's why the bystander effect is so powerful. For those of you who are not aware of the bystander effect, it's where two people witness an accident or any kind of situation, and you ask them the same question, and both of them are extremely sure of details that are completely different. For example, one person will say the car was red, the other person will say the car was black. They both are extremely sure of it. They both will assert these things, and sometimes neither one of them will be right, because we interpret things and we process things in our brains so differently. Unless we're specifically paying attention to something, our brains fill in the gaps wherever we want them to. Not necessarily how we want them to, but wherever they feel the most safe or the most effective doing so. Because we take in so much information, our brains get used to processing so much information in a certain way that's most effective for us in our own survival. That's also why confirmation bias is so dangerous. Because whatever information comes in, we're going to process that information in such a way that it fits into our map of the world, into the way we make sense of the world. So it's extremely important to create a map of the world, create a paradigm of the world that actually is relatively objective as much as possible. Now, it is impossible as a human to be completely objective, right? We're always going to have some kind of opinion, some kind of bias, one way or another. But to eliminate that or minimize that as much as possible is where you want to go. But that's a digression again. Going back to the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, Johnny's explanation of these events gives us just an inkling into the personality of who he was, who he is now, and the fact that anyone in the entire world can experience the same thing you just did, the same exact events, completely different fashion, and have completely different stories about those things. So think about that for a moment. The next time you get upset at someone, the next time you judge someone, the next time you let someone get under your skin, how are they making sense of the world? How are you making sense of the world? What can you do differently? What could you have done differently? Take those things into account. And as you experience things, understand that everyone has their own perspective. And we may not even know what reality actually is. If you ask a fish, how's the water? What are they going to say? Warm? Pretty nice? Not too bad. Come in, check it out? No, they're going to ask you, what water? The fish doesn't even perceive the water because it's lived its entire life in water. So this whole thing, all it knows is water. Whereas we know that there's water, we know that there's air, we know that there's all these different things, but what is our water? What surrounds us and impacts everything we see in the world? What lenses are we looking at the world through? Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Tune in next time. We're going to have more Cinema Coach videos coming your way. Please hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit that bell if you're going to get notified of future videos, and leave a comment or a question below if you have anything like that you want to talk about, and I'd be happy to get back to you. We love Cinema Coach here. I love Cinema Coach, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Obviously, I'm trying to have fun with it, and I'm succeeding on my end, so hopefully there's at least somewhat fun for you guys to watch. Stay tuned, and we'll have more of them coming your way soon. Take care.